So, good afternoon. Today, I just wanted to show you a couple more things and share my experience now with this in case you run into this. So, from the records, I found, I should have looked at that earlier. The car was in a shop in April 2001 for AIS service. That is the air intake system, usually the part of the EGR valve belongs to it. All of this stuff, air intake. In some shops, they also take the catalytic converter in there. This was when the car had 193,000 miles, and now we have 351. I suspect that the catalytic converter in there was changed in April 2001 because they didn't pass the emissions test, and then they did. That means that this catalytic converter now has at least 158,000 miles, not kilometers, on it. And today I took out the connection from here from the EGR valve, which feeds that into this, just to see what this does. And I'm going to turn the engine on. We can see the sud in there, the buildup. And what I suspect, this is my experience now since I got the car. When I got the vehicle, after we got all of the intake system and fuel stuff fixed, I did the adjustment for the what do you call it, the 50% mixture control when it is warm. And what I did this with the Heathkit exhaust tester hooked up. It came right to 1 to 1.5% CO in the exhaust, which was fine. I repeated then this test a year later. This was done in 2022, and that was fine. And if you remember this, in 2023, Clay and I, in August, September, somewhere around there, we replaced the valve seals. And during that process, we found out that the valve guide exhaust number 5 and the valve guide exhaust number 8, I believe, were somewhat loose. They could be pushed up and down with the valve. And this was, I would say, about 8,000, 9,000 miles ago, maybe even 10,000 miles ago. I have driven that much until we had now this failure where the car doesn't run right. And what I had seen in the last 2 or 3 months is an increase in oil consumption. The oil consumption on this engine is approximately 1 quart or about 1 liter for 1,000 miles, which is well within the range. And in the last 3 months or so, I have gotten up to about 1.3, 1.4 liters. And this was also during that time period when the engine performance started to decrease. And we had basically, what this means is more back pressure we're getting, as more oil consumption we're getting, or oil leakage in the system from the valves and everything else, valve seals and so far and so on, from the back pressure. Let me turn the engine on now and show you on how much we're actually getting out of this hole. As you can see, we still have our new catalytic converter sitting here because I have not been able to get a appointment yet. Let's see how well the car starts. I had to run a little bit earlier. See, she starts right away because I got the oxygen sensor out of the exhaust system. And we got now an additional relief. I do not know. You can feel this here. This is quite an extent. Unfortunately, it's not visible. This is not visible, but you can also see the engine shaking, and this is not from the fuel system, but the back pressure we're getting still into the engine. So this is kind of the sequence on how this whole thing actually runs. And we can see now, with this whole thing disconnected, the vacuum gauge here has also dropped off. The sun is shining right against us. So, but I can get engine gets warmer, I can get to a higher RPM, about 4,000. But of course you can't drive this way. So this is basically the sequence. The oil over probably at about 130,000 miles. The engine get carbonized, and that clogs up, starts to clog up the catalytic converter. And then it goes forwards and backwards. The more it gets clogged up, as more oil consumption you got. As more oil consumption you got, as more the catalytic converter clogs up. And then you get to this right around 150,000 miles. So this is kind of where we are with this. Of course, I can't drive the vehicle without having the EGR valve disconnected, but now the EGR valve no longer opens up because there's no pressure on there. And you can see this. I can rev up the cold engine now right to 3,500, 4,000 with that vent port basic now being a venting port, and the one down here where I took out the oxygen sensor. Anyway, that's food for thought. I'm just sharing this because I'm pretty sure that many people out there who are watching my videos, and thank you for doing that, are probably having cars in the range of 100 to 150,000 miles or close to it in that, and they're probably going to start experiencing the same issues with these catalytic converters. I will be back when I get the exhaust installed in the car and got the EGR back connected and the oxygen sensor, and then I can drive. By that time I will make another video. I don't think I'm going to be able to film the exchange of the exhaust because we have to do this in a regular shop. The other muffler shop we have down the street, the guy had a heart attack a week and a half ago, so he is not doing a lot of work either. And so I'm still waiting for Travis to see when we can get this thing on his lift. With that, you have a great Saturday afternoon and a great weekend.